WWE Payback 2023 is in the books. Ladies and gentlemen, it is review time on SCW. Some of the main headlines from the show. The Judgment Day leave with all the gold. That's right. Damian Priest and, of course, Finn Balor winning the Unified WWE Tag Team Championships along with Rhea Ripley retaining against Raquel Rodriguez. Did you notice the choreograph said Gonzalez? As well as that, also Becky Lynch defeating Trish Stratus in a steel cage match. The Zoey Stark and Trish Stratus relationship is no more after the match. Seth Freakin Rollins retained the World Heavyweight Championship despite the back being the focal point of the match. And well, John Cena was a host on this show as a special referee for the LA Knight match. And of course, he was doing a backstage correspondent at one point. And of course, the last little note of the show, Rey Mysterio retaining the United States Championship. So that's the results of the show. That's the main bulk of the show. But also, Jey Uso returning to WWE thanks to Cody Rhodes on the Grayson Waller effect. He has been traded to Monday Night Raw. All the chips were put on the table from Cody. And then Cody left the ring. He didn't say much more. Is there a trade to SmackDown on the way? Is he sticking around on Raw? We'll be discussing that and much, much more on this stream. But of course, my name is Steve. And of course, I'm going to aim to be the host with the most on this stream for you here today. And I'm joined by the one and only Mr. NXSteve in the house, and we're going to be reviewing WWE Payback. First off, hello NXSteve, how are you doing? And what were your initial thoughts of WWE Payback?
I'm good, Steve, as usual. It's been a quiet day. It's a Sunday. I say quiet day. Arsenal won 3-1 against Manchester United, so I can't complain. So I've had a really good day, to be fair. As for Payback, a few personal gripes, but otherwise a really good show. Like, personally, I feel that this show could have been maybe half hour, 45 minutes shorter just by some of the stuff that was in it, but we'll get into it as we go along.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that because we said it very early on. This show was 3 hours and 25 minutes long, which of course they're starting to creep a bit longer, these Triple H shows. They got to the point where they were short and compact. There's still 6 match cards, but they are getting more time to breathe. Maybe it's the stuff going outside of it. Maybe it's a talk segment also added to the show. This was a bit longer of a PLE than what we're used to seeing, especially for a B pay-per-view. But overall, like you said, you seem to enjoy overall there.
Yeah. It's like I said, it was just it had 3 really good matches in it and some okay matches. But like the ones that were really good, well, my God, they were good.
Yeah, absolutely indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, the comments are coming flying in nice and early. So before we get started with the review, let's say hello to our chat. We've got C Nation in house coming nice and early, saying Damian Priest is the first ever person to hold 2 belts, the Money in the Bank contract, which makes him a triple holder. Do you know what? It's true indeed. They're the Raw and SmackDown Tag Team Championships, along with the Money in the Bank briefcase. And of course, Finn Balor now finally can say he is a Grand Slam champion. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. Richard with a prediction there saying that Zoey Stark to be traded to SmackDown. I think a rivalry is more likely at this point. We'll be talking about them later on because I'm still a bit disappointed they broke up at this early stage. Temple Place says, evening, last night's Payback felt like an NXT takeover. Just 6 matches. Shinsuke Nakamura, always the bridesmaid and never the bride. Oh, what a comment there from Temple Place. We'll be diving into that later in the show. Nation goes on to say as well, the Judgment Day winning those tag team championships was a shocker. Certainly was not the prediction I made, but certainly I know someone next to me who did make that prediction. So yeah, that one came through for NXSteve. It should have been Finn Balor and JD McDonough, says C Nation. We'll be talking about that as well in more detail. Wrestle Boom in the house as well. Should I say Wrestle Boom in the house says, what up, guys? Good to see you're here. Hope you are keeping well, as long with Pierre as well. What's up, Steve, my man? It's good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. Lillian Bogart's in the house as well. Hope you are keeping well, Lillian. Thank you for checking us out once again. We've got Mo in the house as well. Hi, Mo. And of course, Pierre, give us some love to NXT as well. Yeah, lovely to see as well. C Nation, he says the Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso storyline is copying Rey Mysterio and Dirty Dominic Mysterio storyline. Do you know what? I was going to say that later as well. CD, you've beat me to the punch. And do you know what? Well done for you, sir, for doing so as well. Wrestle Boomer says, do you guys think Cody Rhodes gets traded to SmackDown? Well, I'll tell you, let's answer that one nice and early. I know that we're not going chronological order, but as the question's been asked, let's touch on it. Obviously, Cody walked away from the ring after saying that Jey Uso had been traded to Raw. He'd made all the chips on the table. Let's not forget that Cody Rhodes had the big rivalry with the Bloodline going into WrestleMania. So to do this is a big move from Cody Rhodes. It shows forgiveness, certainly for Jey Uso, and also is a bit of a reminder with this Bloodline story. is Cody really going to finish the story? I mean, Grayson even made references to finishing the story, including the Philly crowd, who said, just like Cody Rhodes, can't finish the story because he said they couldn't read.
Grayson Waller is great. The question itself that Cody getting traded to SmackDown is interesting because it's like, is it a case of he's been traded for Jey? I don't know, but then you have to sit there and think about it and think like, what's left for him to do on Raw? Like, I can't really see any rivalries on there apart from Seth Rollins for the World Championship. But the impression I got was that this Nakamura Seth Rollins is still going to carry on like for the next couple of shows. From like, I don't know if you saw the network exclusives because for some reason they cut the show and then they decided to put up afterwards that Nakamura jumped Seth afterwards. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go. It's Cody's just obviously he's in that place where it's like it's too soon for him to be in a championship scenario because I think the idea is that he takes it at Mania. So what do you do with him? That's the big question.
It's a great question to make reference. And if Cody Rhodes was to go to SmackDown right now, let's not forget Edge has left WWE. There's a void that needs filling. Like you say, what does Cody do on Raw in the meantime? Obviously, I suppose a feud with Drew McIntyre could happen, but that's babyface versus babyface. Obviously, we've seen against The Miz, against Judgment Day. Like you said, Seth Rollins is a possibility. But I can't think of too much else at this particular moment. Like I said, if you move him over to SmackDown, A, you can finish the story at WrestleMania. B, you could do a match, I suppose, with John Cena while Cena is around. That could be a way to propel Cody Rhodes in a big rivalry going forward. So there are things that you can do with Cody if he was to move over to SmackDown. Of course, we don't have to mention the likes of LA Knight being on SmackDown, Austin Theory, perhaps maybe Jimmy Uso could be a rivalry because of the fact of the exception that Jey's been moved to Raw. There is a lot you could do with Cody on the blue brand. It's something I certainly would support. The only disappointment is we wouldn't see Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, although I suppose it's something you could do further down the line.
That's set for Mania in 2 years from now, that one, because that's going to be the story after next year's draft when everyone's going to be building to Gunther versus Cody at the Mania following, I reckon. But do you know what? Jimmy sounds like a really good rivalry. Like, obviously, the history's there. They're trying to build Jimmy as a big star now. So I think giving him Cody Rhodes would probably be the greatest way to elevate Jimmy.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Temple Plays goes on to say, very kind comment here. The best duo on YouTube. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you, Temple Plays. Not so bad yourself, by the way. We keep an eye on your content as well. Richard says, "Do we think Zoey Stark will get traded to SmackDown?" Honestly, I'm going to say no. I think that she will feud with Trish on Raw.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that the idea to build Zoey Stark up via Trish is a great way. Like, she's had like some decent in-ring stuff since she's joined. It's the promo stuff for me that, like I said on the prediction show, I think that's the only thing she really needs to get over. But Trish is definitely the right way for her.
Absolutely, indeed. There, C Nation says that Trish and Zoey could have been the women's tag team champions. That's something I wanted to see. I thought that would have been a good natural direction to have gone before the breakup between these two. But seems like that's not going to happen. Do you reckon they could have been a benefit to the tag team division for now?
Yeah, we said this on the prediction show. Like, you brought it up, and I was like, it actually sounds like a good way to bolster that women's tag team title roster. And it's just like, it's a shame. It's like we get these ideas every time for women's tag teams, and it just never seems to come to fruition. So you never know. Maybe this rivalry will be better than any tag team run that they could have possibly had.
Absolutely, indeed. There, it's a shame. It looks like a rivalry certainly will be the way going forward. I will ask then if you can actually extend and give us the rest of that of what you were going to go with there. Who do you think are going to win WWE? I'm interested in which championship or perhaps event you're referring to when it comes to that. WrestleMania UK in house. I've got to say, Mex, love your vlog, my friend, for AEW All In. It's superb. Of course, he has done it for Rev Pro, I believe, the night before as well. So a couple of great vlogs to go and check out on his channel. Does fantastic work all the time as well. But it says, thank you, Trish. And I'll tell you what, let's start off our review with thank you, Trish. On that note, then, of course, we did have the steel cage match to open the show. Becky Lynch defeating Trish Stratus in a steel cage match. Now, of course, this one I thought was a fantastic opener to the show. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, Trish has shown how she looks today on social media, and the bruising on her head is absolutely ridiculous. The amount of times her head went into that steel cage. There was a tribute to Victoria with a widow's peak at one point. Of course, Becky Lynch doing a tribute to Lita with a twist of fate. We saw a moment where Trish was hanging over the cage, literally legs tied up to the top of the cage, dangling on the outside of the cage. She was pulled in, and a big suplex suplex done into the ring with a very special looking spot. Following this, Zoey Stark would get involved in the match, the steel cage door going into Becky's face. Of course, though, Becky was able to overcome Zoey Stark and eventually land a manhandle slam from Trish Stratus, basically off the top rope into the ring. And let's not forget an early moment in the match as well, where Trish also landed a bulldog into the ring from the top rope as well onto Becky Lynch. So for me, all in all, fantastic start to the show. Becky Lynch obviously picking up the victory here. Tiffany Stratton was watching in attendance, and of course backstage there was a segment later on almost teeing up a future match between those two. It looks like perhaps maybe NXT No Mercy could be the destination for it. But first up, we'll talk about Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. I thought this was an awesome way to start the show.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking today at some of the ratings that have been given for previous Steel Cages match, and it's been rated really well, and I can see why. Like, it was great. Like, obviously my one gripe, as always with cage matches, is that they never climb over the top anymore. It's always a pinfall, and it's kind of like it's the whole point of the cage for me. But aside from that, fantastic match. One thing you forgot to mention as well, not obviously to blame you, but that superplex was immense. Always love a superplex off the top of the cage. Think they're great.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a solid, hard-hitting match. And yeah, Trish's forehead, man. Like, I saw it come up and I was like, is that, like, I thought like they'd put a blood pack on her head and it was supposed to have gone off or something. But no, it was proper welting and bruising. And I was like, oh, I feel sorry for the makeup artist that's got to try and cover that one up because that looked painful.
Yeah, absolutely. It did look quite a painful sight to say the least. But hey, to be fair, this concludes a story that I think needed finishing. Becky Lynch and Trish had run its course, let's be fair. But to do it on a steel cage match, to have plenty of time as well to kick this PLE off, for me, this answered the question whether this should have been on SummerSlam or this should have been here, because this could have been somewhere on the card, probably giving a lot less time. Would it have the same impact? I think this, I mean, Michael Cole screamed this at the start of the show being one of the matches of the year. Obviously, in the WWE calendar, I think we could agree it's certainly within the top 10 instantly. I think this was right to be left to this show. Like we said last year, Seth Rollins and Riddle being given a few weeks to go to Extreme Rules did a big favor for them. I feel that this for Payback has done a great favor for Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus.
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's a case of, I think if this hadn't have been on this show, would this show have been as good as what it was? Like, you'd imagine you'd have had something else in this place. You'd have, like, for me, 3 really good matches, then it becomes 2, and it's kind of like, does it lower the value of a B-list pay-per-view? And it's kind of like, I think having it on here gives WWE the reason to turn around and say that you need to tune into the smaller pay-per-views, not just the big ones.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. I would agree with that wholeheartedly as well there. And obviously, we mentioned there was Zoey Stark and Trish Stratus no more. Obviously, would have liked to have seen them continue as a team for the time being, but looks to be the future destination, I guess, going forward. Then we have Zoey Stark versus Trish Stratus. I'm going to make a prediction for you now. I'm going to give my No Mercy prediction away very early because I'm assuming Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton takes place on No Mercy for the NXT Women's Championship. I'm going to predict that Shayna Baszler will turn up on that show and cost Becky Lynch. Let's not forget, Shayna Baszler did confront Becky Lynch a few weeks ago on Monday Night Raw and did say there was some unfinished business there. It's gone all very quiet since then, and it's almost gone quiet to the point that maybe, just maybe, a few people might have forgotten that it would provide a real big shock factor when it comes to No Mercy. Could you see something like that playing out for Becky Lynch?
I like the sound of it. I mean, if you want to reignite a rivalry that was started years ago, like by famously, as I keep going on, Shayna biting the back of Becky's neck. Hey, do it again, man. Do it again on NXT No Mercy. Have Shayna come in, bite the back of Becky's neck, and then we can start this whole thing again and do it properly this time.
Absolutely, let's run it back. But before we move on, instead of running backwards and rewinding, we're going to fast forward in a second. Let's give a star rating. What do we think then? Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus in the steel cage.
For me, I'm going to say 4 stars. I think it was a really good match. Obviously, the finish is always a gripe for me. But I think for what they did, I thought it was amazing. 2 women, a 16-foot steel cage. Just amazing, man.
Absolutely. For me, I think at least it was decisive on that finish. That's the one thing I give the pro. I want to see a climb out of the cage like you, but the fact is, it's conclusive. There's no need to do another match. And I agree with you. 4 stars is what I'm going to give this match as well. We have a good question that has come in for us, which has come from WrestleBoom, asking, do you guys think that John Cena will turn heel and feud with LA Knight? We're going to link that then into what will be of course, LA Knight defeating The Miz. Of course, John Cena was the special guest referee. Cena did come to ringside as the host after the first match, and The Miz did confront him. And, of course, they did have their back and forth. Hello, 2011, once again. But The Miz, of course, saying, John Cena, you're nearly 50 years old and you're dressed like a Teletubby. Probably one of my favourite lines that I've heard in a while.
I was expecting him to start making the noises of the Teletubbies as well. I think that would have been hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know until I was watching the kickoff show that John Cena was even going to be the special guest referee. So I think maybe if they'd have left that as a surprise and just had Cena come out, I think that would have been an even bigger pop. I think just having Cena as the surprise referee. But this was my one issue with the show. Is this again? I can't complain, and I can complain because it's like it's always great having John Cena on the show. But these segments throughout the night just seem to drag it out. Like I enjoyed them wholeheartedly, but I think that they're starting to turn the pay-per-views into the TV show, and there's like backstage interviews, and it's like it's a pay-per-view. Like you don't really need these. Like this is the end of your story. If you want these interviews, put them on the exclusives on the .com or wait till Raw, man. I think so. That's just my one issue with it.
I can understand and I can agree with that. Obviously, they're trying to build something here for this match, and perhaps maybe the ultimate destination here could be to put LA Knight over as a bigger star. If you've got John Cena in a match with him, there's a good chance that a lot more eyes will be also on that match, which obviously is a good thing there. The Miz obviously looked like he was trying to take advantage during the match. There looked to be dissension at one point with LA Knight and John Cena, which we'll come to the WrestleBoom comment in a minute. But LA Knight was able to overcome things, did win with the Blood Force trauma in the end. For me, it was a good TV match, I would say. That was my kind of takeaway from it. Felt like more like something you would see on a Raw and a SmackDown, but obviously I suppose having that John Cena special referee element will get more people talking, especially with the fact that John Cena did embrace LA Knight in the aisleway at the end of the match, lifting his hand, but it did feel a little bit that LA Knight was almost, he was willing to throw down as well. It felt like that it wasn't 100% baby faces on side.
Yeah, I mean just to talk about the match quickly, like this match wasn't anything special. It was just a really solid, good match between two wrestlers, and I think this is why you really needed to add John Cena to it, just to not make it feel like just a normal match. And the fact that they're teasing this whole LA Knight John Cena scenario, it's exciting, but this leads to the question: who's going to be the heel? Because what was the point in turning LA Knight a face if he's going to be faced against John Cena? Because for me personally, I can't ever see John Cena being a heel now. Like they missed their opportunity. R.I.P. Bray Wyatt when he done the whole Firefly Funhouse match, and they had NWO John Cena. I think like imagine if they'd have actually pulled that trigger after that WrestleMania and turned Cena into NWO John Cena. It would have been amazing. But the thing is outside of WWE, he does too many good things. He does too many make-a-wish. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's like he does all these make-a-wishes, and you can't have a heel wrestler doing all these kinds of things. It just doesn't make sense because he's supposed to be the bad guy if he's a heel. And like it's going to put him off kids. And let's be honest, John Cena is like the biggest hero to most kids nowadays that watch wrestling.
Absolutely, indeed. And that's why I would actually answer the question. I don't think John Cena will turn heel. If they do a match like what they've done here with The Miz, obviously The Miz did look like he had the advantage at one point. He did do his skull-crushing finale, and of course it was kicked out by LA Knight. He then went to go and do the five-knuckle shuffle stuff, You Can't See Me, and of course that led to the downfall for The Miz. But obviously it closes the chapter with The Miz, who was a great talker, and obviously that made what I thought was a good rivalry. LA Knight and John Cena in the ring together doing a, on the mic, battling off, I think could be quite interesting. I think a face versus face match can work, and you can, I suppose it's not fun doing the can they coexist storyline, but the thing is, if you can have them in tag team action, if you want to integrate them and stuff like that in the meantime, but if they're going to do the head to head, I don't see anyone turning heel because LA Knight's too over right now. John Cena may get booed, but I think that John Cena can probably still be John Cena. He was booed throughout a lot of his run in WWE, and now he's just going for a point where he's respected.
They still say John Cena sucks when he comes to the ring in his music, so it's all good. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea is this is a good way to get LA Knight over, and having him beat someone like John Cena is just going to build LA Knight up, and I think it's the whole purpose of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, what's be your star rating then for LA Knight and The Miz?
I'm probably going to say 2 3/4. It was just a really good, consistent match.
I didn't find there was nothing that really made me turn around and go, do you know what? I could watch that back again. It was just, and it was better than a TV match. So I'm going to go 2 3/4.
I got 2.5. I think for me was like you said, it's does what it needs to do. It gets us to the next level. Nothing to really scream home about, but certainly, I still thought it was fun for everyone that was involved, and I think everyone played their role well enough within the match. We'll go to the comments in the meantime. We're not going to neglect you guys. Lots of comments come flying in, and thank you all so much for doing so. Pierre saying Finn Balor is the 17th Grand Slam champion and the first Irish Grand Slam champion, just like Kevin Owens is the first Quebecer of French Canadian Grand Slam champions. There's a lot of Grand Slam champions going around. Sorry?
I said Quebec, right? Not a tag team.
Yeah, the Quebecers back in the day, going back to the mid-90s, of course, with Jean-Pierre Lafitte or whatever his name was, and the Mountie. I don't think it was Jean-Pierre at that time, though.
No, I don't know either. But it's one of them ones I try to remember from existence. But Seth being a Grand Slam champion, it's great. There's a small asterisk on that Grand Slam champion run, that the fact that he was Universal champion for essentially a day. That's the problem that they need to rectify.
Absolutely, yeah, I would agree with that. The American Nightmare and House says, I will finish that story. You just have to be patient. Maybe WrestleMania 40 patient, but American Nightmare, I like what you're doing there for us. Absolutely superb. Top place, I'm sorry. I get to watch the CM Punk video last night. I was setting up my Payback watch along on Twitch. Don't ever be sorry about that. We'll go back and watch it. Are you allowed to talk about CM Punk on this review? We can talk about CM Punk on this review, but I'd prefer to do it after we've covered the review. I think if we go too much off topic, then we kind of lose our train of thought of what we're talking about with Payback. But maybe at the end, if we're good on timing, we can always talk some more CM Punk if you would like to. Of course, we're not against that. As well as that, going through some more of the comments there.
Excuse to stick around as well.
Absolutely. I'll try and give any excuse we can do. Who do we think is going to be winning in the WWE for this year? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people, probably Lillian, will be winning this year in WWE. With a lot of matches still to play through. But obviously, judging on what we're seeing here on this show, I think the Judgment Day have got a good run ahead of them.
Let me add a spin to this. If you was going to say who's going to have the best year this year, who would you put your money on at this present minute?
I mean, for what's left of it, or what are we going from January to now, like to the end?
Including everything that's happened and up till December. Let's say, who do you reckon is going to have the best year?
It's a very good question. I tell you what, now that he's come back, and we'll be talking about it more in detail, Jey Uso is certainly within a shout, because he has gone from main event Jey to sidekick to really main event Jey. He's main evented the WrestleMania night, he's main evented SummerSlam, and he could be going into a big program going into, who knows, Royal Rumble time on the Raw side maybe. He's got some programs he was doing before he gets to Jimmy Uso at WrestleMania next year. So I think Jey Uso is within a shout.
I'm going to say, depending on what happens to the rest of the year, I think LA Knight is the other possibility to have the best year. Just because it depends on what he does, who he wrestles, if he wins anything. I think that will be the defining point for his year.
Absolutely. It's where you start and it's where you finish as well. Temple Place says, seeing the great mood in the crowd last night, I thought Nakamura would have become WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So it was a tease there at one point, certainly, with that. Sinister says, hot take, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, undisputed WWE Tag Team title was actually all right. They got a win over Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. They certainly did indeed. And who knows?
And they main evented a WrestleMania.
There you go. That's what they did. And also, they main event Night of Champions, like with that match with Roman and Solo. So yeah, they've been hot property at places when it comes to it. Richard, once again with Zoey Stark, needs to join the Judgment Day. We'll see, my friend. We'll see on that one.
It's a good shout, to be fair.
I don't see it. I've never seen it, unfortunately. I think you've got Rhea there. Rhea's the dominant one. Like, she doesn't need anyone else with her at this point. She doesn't play well with anyone else in the women's division. It seems that she injures them. So, that's just from what I've seen anyway from observing. Seth Rollins retaining the World Heavyweight Championship was the right move. He needs to have a long reign. And also a question, where has Lita been?
Lita was never drafted. Technically, Lita's a free agent. So, who knows? Lita could show up at any point.
Could that be a missed opportunity at some point in this Becky and Trish feud that we never didn't get a Becky and Lita match against Zoey and Trish?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would have been one of them ones that you could have thrown as a main event for a Raw, or at some point on a B-list pay-per-view. Like for instance, if we hadn't have had Becky and Trish last night, you know what I mean? This would have been like a perfect place for that kind of match.
Absolutely, indeed. There, we're going through the comments just to catch up in the meantime. Before we move on to our next match, we got Becky and Tiffany, NXT Women's Championship. What a way to elevate Tiffany! Certainly is indeed. This is a massive moment for her.
Hey, Tiffany's going all the way to the moon, man. Her character work is phenomenal. Her in-ring work is phenomenal. That backstage segment with Becky last night, phenomenal. And the way that Tiffany just brushed off Becky like she was nothing, amazing. Can't wait to see it.
We will not be saying toodles to her anytime soon. She's doing fantastic work. How about Kiana James? She is the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. She is, but I don't see her winning on Tuesday.
No, unfortunately not.
No, that's an early prediction there. Mex saying a cage match is designed to keep people in the cage. Can one of the healers look to escape and maybe underdog baby faces? Otherwise, escaping the cage is a bit silly in Mex's opinion. Fair play. Obviously NXT likes to see people climb out of the cage.
But like I said to you, remember my suggestion that you had Zoe's hands handcuffed between the one side of the cage and the door, so Becky couldn't go out through the cage door. And I don't know, just have Becky climb out. I thought, I'm not saying it should have been in this match, but it's something I miss from steel cage matches that we don't see rarely.
I mean, to be fair, we saw Bret Hart and Owen Hart recently from SummerSlam 94, an incredible match. And obviously these two were doing the escape the cage element. And of course, it was very neck and neck how both of them would get to the floor at the same time. That sort of drama when they're over the cage, I do like that in the cage match. And I think it does. Yeah. It's fun to mix it up. But I do see Mex's point here of why it works in the story for a stronger babyface to, for example, not look to escape the cage. So I think it depends on the match and the rivals and the people that are involved. I can see all sides of the argument. And personally, I do like a bit of both. I'm not going to lie. I do like a bit of both. If John Moxley wins the International Championship tonight, then he'll be the first ever person to win 2 different singles titles in AEW history. I didn't know that. I'd have to check that stat. Yeah, good on him if that's the case. CD says as well, I think John Cena raising LA Knight's hand is enough. I do not think Cena and LA Knight having a match. Miz and LA Knight feud will continue. The Miz will make an excuse about John Cena. To be fair, Cena could be onto something here.
It's very true, but I think I don't know. I think the Miz. I think it's done now. I mean, I was sitting there talking to someone about it yesterday, and I was like, to be fair, their promos have been very. It's always been the same thing. It's always been about who's had the harder life, and it was kind of like, all right, we've had this for a couple of weeks now. Although the promos have been great, it's been the same thing consistently, and I think that either the promos need to change or we just need to change the story altogether.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the thing is, I can see the idea of why Miz would have the gripe, but for me, I would prefer that then to finish on a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown. I know they've been kind of going across both shows at this particular time. I prefer that there rather than dragging it through to Fastlane. Although the story between those two actually was a lot of fun to see on TV, I'm just not sure how much more we're going to get with LA Knight and The Miz that we haven't seen already. That's only my personal opinion on it, but at the same time, I would be invested in seeing LA Knight versus John Cena, but I can see the reasons already against them why not to do it if both of them are meant to be big baby faces. So it's an incredible take, and I think SmackDown will be very telling this upcoming week to what we're going to see John Cena doing. Although John Cena probably won't be at SmackDown this upcoming week, because I believe that's the day that Superstar Spectacle in India is actually taking place. So we probably won't see Cena on this upcoming Friday SmackDown.
Wow. I did not know that, so that's news to me. What is it then? Is it going to be a pre-recorded episode of SmackDown?
I think most of the Raw roster is going over there. I know members of the Judgment Day, Sami KO, Odyssey Jones, Jinder Mahal, Indus Sher, and then John Cena, I think, is one of the other main ones that will be Jones. There. Yeah, he's advertised for the show. Goodness knows what he's doing.
Wow, okay, that's random.
Absolutely, yeah. And maybe it's a breakout moment for him. Who knows? Pierre says, with John Cena, when John Cena shows you an incredible lack of respect, you know that you're going to be a megastar, and soon enough, LA Knight will be US champion. WrestleWomen says, DIY should dethrone Judgment Day. Just his opinion. Do you know what? It's not a bad shout at all. We're still looking, Chubb. We're still looking for Johnny Gargano. It's official. John Cena is Tinky Winky. Of course, another comment made by The Miz as well. And of course, Temple does agree with WrestleManiac UK on with the steel cage. WrestleManiac also going to say that John Cena is a legend, but honestly, John Cena sucks. I think anyone from RMX will probably say the same. But the rest of them says crazy.
Apparently.
Apparently now the greatest of all time. I wasn't sure. I found that a bit of cringe.
It was. Tell you what, this was my really biggest gripe with the show. Is Corey Graves was insufferable, especially during this Miz match. Oh my god, I really like Corey Graves, but I think there was at one point in the next match that even Michael Cole turns around and says, "All right, just shut up, Corey." Jesus Christ, it was so irritating. He done my brain in all night last night.
And he claimed he was on a roll at one point as well there.
Oh.
So yeah, absolutely. I do agree. He felt, you could tell he was home, couldn't you? He was really going for it. But Rest of the Boom says crazy idea. Jey Uso could dethrone Gunther at Fastlane. A suggestion there?
No. If anyone's taking that title off of Gunther, it's going to be Chad Gable. And that'll be like Chad Gable has earned the right to dethrone Gunther. Like, I expect the match on Raw tomorrow night to end in some sort of no contest, DQ, whatever, which will push this onto Fastlane. And at that point, Gunther would have broken the Honky Tonk Man's record, and then Chad Gable will finally win that IC title on a pay-per-view where it deserves to be won.
Fair play. I'm not, to be fair, if you go on name value, Jey Uso for me over Chad Gable, although I do think Chad Gable deserves a moment. He deserves his moment. He's given a lot of work to WWE over the years. The thing I would say is, though, if Gunther's going to lose that championship, and I've said it before, triple threat, it's going to be done the same way as Bobby Lashley lost the United States Championship, because he needs to go to the next level. I do not want to see him pinned or submitted, because I want him going for that World Heavyweight Championship. Yes, keep an eye out for Gunther and Seth Rollins. That's the match I really want to see. We'll stop there just for the second, just so we can go to the next match. We're going to talk about Rey Mysterio defeating Austin Theory for the retaining the United States Championship. No shenanigans in this match at all. I was thinking to myself, though, Austin Theory is a really good performer. Austin Theory. I was trying to figure out to myself, I suppose, where it's gone wrong a little bit for Austin Theory this calendar year, because it feels like since WrestleMania, the ball has been dropped. Now, I did do a theory, pun intended, the other day, suggesting, has WWE done it on purpose? Maybe I'm giving their creator too much credit if they wanted to do Theory versus Cena one more time. However, there was a lot of people suggesting that Rey Mysterio could lose this match due to Santos Escobar. That hasn't happened. I'm guessing that'll be saved for another day. But the finishing sequence of this match, I thought, was really good. The way that Theory was kind of throwing Rey Mysterio around, was going to go for the A-Town down. Of course, that was countered and done into a roll-up for the victory. But what are your thoughts of Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory?
It was okay. It wasn't, again, a very good TV match, I suppose. But I think Austin Theory's display in this match was like really, really good. Like you said, the finish to the match was really good. The whole reversal to the splash, and then the way he got out of it was great. It's just a shame that I don't see what they're going to do with Theory. Like, he just seems like he's in a void somewhere. Like, he gets these opportunities, and then it's almost like, they just drop the ball with him and go, okay, we don't know what to do with you now. We've given you the US title. We've given you a win over Cena at WrestleMania, but we don't know what's next for you. And it's a case of, this is the problem of him being on SmackDown as well, is the fact that Roman Reigns is champion. So there's no chance of him moving up to the main event scene. So, yeah, I think he needs to move shows more than anything.
I feel Theory was one of the bad draft picks this year. I think Theory, if he'd remained on Raw, he would be doing more than what he currently is. Although he has done stuff for Pretty Deadly, who I miss very much at this particular moment. Shame with the injury to Elton Prince. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with Theory moving forward. I feel that he may actually go a bit further down the pecking order in the meantime right now, because obviously now he's completely out of that United States Championship picture, isn't there? There's no going back for the time being.
I can't see the reason why they would need to go back in for him to go back into it. Like, he's lost the title, he's lost his rematch. This would be the perfect time to stick a Money in the Bank briefcase on him, because that way it'd give him something to do. But even now, he can't do that. So the only other thing I could possibly imagine was trade him to SmackDown, stick him in a tag team with Grayson Waller. It's probably the only thing at the minute you could do. I mean, like you said, since Pretty Deadly, since one of them got injured, there was almost a formation of a faction there, which would have been really good. But it just seems to be he's lost in limbo at the minute.
Absolutely. With Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar, a lot of people speculating the idea that will lead to a program further down the line. Of course, we have speculated that as well. I will give my opinion on it. I think it was right that it was not done here. I think this could be dragged out, and I think this is a story that needs to take its time. I think it can go all the way to WrestleMania if they wanted it to. Whether it will remains to be seen. But I think it was the right move that Rey retained here.
Yeah, I think Reign almost needs to do an open challenge kind of thing. Get a couple of wins over some people as an open challenge, and then maybe have Santos be one of the open challenges. I think if you used to do it that way, have Rey retain, and then possibly build that. This is how then the heel turn from Santos then kicks in. He's lost his match with Ray, and it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? He's always the spiteful regret. Do you know what I mean? He's spiteful and like upset that Ray's got this title that should be his, and that way we can get like almost a natural heel turn.
Yeah, I guess so. Perhaps even a case of that he wants a title shot, and obviously, say Ray is stupid enough then to accept it from somebody else and loses the title. That could always be a case of, well, hang on, that was supposed to be my championship chance, and I was supposed to have it to begin with, and then you won the title in my place, sort of thing. So, yeah, I think there's certainly something they can work with that in the meantime. But what will be your star rating for Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory? I'm going to go for a 2.5 once again, because for me it was just fine, but just fine.
I'm probably going to go 2.25. I think that. Yeah, it's just like I said. It was just a better than slightly better than not average TV match. Do you know what I mean? It was like it really could have got. I suppose we know why it was on the shows, because it was the Cinnamon Toast Crunch sponsored match. So it was like, I'm surprised we didn't get the giant bit of toast walking around the ring at some point. So yeah, 2.25 for me.
Yeah, I mean, Theory did blame that as the reason he lost the match. What's your thoughts with that? Obviously, I understand WWE have got sponsorships; they've got to do their thing. I look at it when something's around the ring, like, excuse me, if you watch a football match or soccer match, if you will, you see the billboards obviously around the football pitch promoting all different things, making money for the football clubs. So I'm not really against the idea that WWE does that, but obviously we don't see it all the time. But if it's on a massive Tron and it's bright purple, I mean, we've got bright purple here. We're wanting to stand out on this show for you to see these bits on the bottom. But is that a bit much for the eye, especially with the wrestlers in the ring as well, and for the fans watching in attendance?
Do you know what? It just feels like it's forced. Like the only reason why it's on here is because of it. I mean, let's be honest, it can't get any worse than a zombie lumberjack match. For as much as I love it, I think that that was just a bit too much. But yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I liked the Mountain Dew match for the aesthetic. I thought it looked amazing. Like the whole black light with the neon stuff looked great. But this one, it just seems like they used to just do where this match is sponsored by Snickers, and that was it. You didn't see nothing else. So, do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not a biggest fan of it, but it's just like it just feels forced.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think it's Rey Mysterio's had both of these cinnamon crunch toast matches so far, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe he'll be the sponsor of this going forward.
The guy on the cereal box, yeah.
You never know. You never know. Could be a way. Collect all 5. Rey Mysterio in different masks and ring attire. Who knows?
A free Rey Mysterio mask a free Rey Mysterio mask at the bottom of every pack. Oh yeah, absolutely. My wife literally came back from America a couple of months ago, and she brought me some home. It's amazing. But I still wouldn't like. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily want to see it all over my TV screen while I'm watching wrestling.
Absolutely not. No, I totally get where you're coming from. But we'll move on in the meantime anyway. We'll talk about the next match, and then we'll go back to the comments once again, because let's be fair, Judgment Day winning the Unified WWE Tag Team Championships in a Steel City Street fight from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn potentially could be match of the night here. I mean, this was absolutely incredible. This gave me the reminiscence of a hardcore match back in the old days.
Potentially match of the night. This is potentially match of the year, man. This was amazing. And we've seen it on the pre-show. Like, someone suggested a Hell in a Cell match between Kevin and Sami. And I was like, nah. A good old-fashioned street fight. And look what they pulled off in this match. It was amazing. Like, I was gassed from a minute go, man. This was so entertaining. So funny, man.
It was indeed. And obviously, I'm going to do my best to try and remember every detail we can for this. But NXSteve, help me, because it's not going to happen all in one go here. But I mean, when you look at the fact that these guys were fighting around the ring, there was chairs involved nice and early, tables being brought out, the fans cheering for it, they're getting what they want, fighting through the crowd. Dominic Mysterio making a first appearance already, so it's 3-on-2 early doors. Of course, KO and Sami were thrown over into a penalty box, I suppose, over the barricade anyway. Seemed to be into a hockey area. Coming up in hockey gear as well. The 2 legends from the Penguins, I believe, from back in the day. These are 2 absolute legends that were wearing on their back. KO was busted hard style as well, early doors. But where did that come from?
How though? Yeah, because it was a case of just before he'd taken a chair shot to the back from Finn. He rolled out of the ring. Then Sami hit Finn. And then that's when they went over the barricade, and then they went over the wall, and then all of a sudden he was pouring blood, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Has he done it?" Like, has he cut himself like to make it look like? But it's just, but you could tell just before he went over the barricade, he felt his head, so he knew he'd started bleeding for some reason. I was like, maybe it was just pure aggression that made his forehead bust open.
Yeah,
maybe
it's KO's gimmick at the moment, isn't it? Really, to be fair, he gets very angry, so now maybe he goes full John Moxley and just bleeds. Yeah, absolutely, maybe. It just popped. That's what it was, maybe. That's all it needed to be. But obviously, as well, we should mention, obviously, that there's a tribute to Terry Funk in this match early doors as well. The fact that KO's original T-shirt sported Terry Funk. And obviously, this felt like a more tribute to Terry Funk than what the original hardcore match they did on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago. This had a lot more violence through it. But the hockey spot with the sticks and stuff was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. And then, like, we get to the bit just after where the two of them throw down gloves with Dominic by the ring entrance, by the entrance ramp, and it was like, I was dying with laughter. It was so funny and so good, man.
It was hilarious, wasn't it? And of course, Dom wanting to keep getting involved, but he was then to pay for it not long afterwards. He was laying on the table in the aisleway, or one of the entranceways through the crowd. Kevin Owens jumping off of the top of one of these sort of like, I don't know, podiums, the first level podium, doing a senton through the table through Dominic. That looked painful. And I've got to say, particularly the camera shot from underneath looking him diving over was spectacular.
It gave me flashbacks to, I think it's Rumble 2000, Hardys versus Dudleys in a table match. And I think Jeff does the same thing. And I was like, it literally went to my head and went, why didn't they put two tables down and have him on two tables before he did that? But he looked like he landed right on his ass, man. It looked painful.
It did indeed. It was very painful. But obviously, as the match then would continue on, with Dominic out of the scene for it looked like Sami and KO were going to pick up the victory until one JD McDonough made the save at the pinfall. Of course, then not long afterwards, Rhea Ripley would get involved as well. So this soon quickly became 5-on-2. KO was actually put through the barricade via Rhea Ripley as well, which was what did you think of that barricade spot? For me, it looked a bit softer than usual, but Rhea Ripley selling of it afterwards I thought was awesome. She sort of hulked up laying on the ground.
Whatever Rhea Ripley does, I'm sold on, man. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great way to put Rhea over, especially with the fact that she's about to go into a match with someone who is bigger than her for the first time ever. Like, normally everyone else is like minuscule compared to Rhea Ripley. So I think making her look extra strong before she goes into this match, I thought was great. Yeah, man, you just don't cross mummy, man. Everyone knows that.
Absolutely, you don't indeed. Obviously, Finn Balor was knocked through a table as well on the outside. And obviously, just as it looked like the match was, 5-on-2, it didn't look like there was a chance that Sami and KO could get involved. Obviously, we mentioned KO has been taken out with. Sami did hit what I believe was a haluva kick, on Finn Balor. It looked like he was going to get the pinfall. And Dominic Mysterio came in and used the briefcase on the back of Sami's head. And Finn Balor managed to get the roll-up and the pinfall victory. And, of course, Judgment Day then winning the Unified Tag Team Championships. And of course, I'm sure I've missed a few details of this match, but those are the ones that come to my head sporadically right now. But obviously, for me, all in all, this was just a fun watch from start to finish.
The main one is the pop-up power bomb from KO and JD on the announcers table, because that looked brutal. Yeah. But man, absolutely insane match from start to finish. Absolutely loved it. It's why I love tag team wrestling. They should do more of these. It's great.
Yeah. The thing is, like, obviously, if you do it every single week, it loses its value. When you go back to the Attitude Era, but I agree with you, there should be more of this. We don't see this style of wrestling enough anymore, and I think that we used to get it a lot back in the day, and a bit of variety here and there to do this. The creative spots, like I said, the hockey stuff, I think was probably my highlight of the match. I really enjoyed that, and just to basically see as well how this match was a street fight, and usually when they see this element, I think Judgment Day have the advantage, but somehow still lose. Here it was 5-on-2. They made the use of the numbers and picked up the victory. It did make sense to the story.
It did, and I think this is actually got a potential to be a War Games match at Survivor Series. I think that if they introduce JD McDonough into the Judgment Day, they've got then 4 men. I think if Kevin and Sami can find 2 other guys to go into a War Games with, I think you could be looking at an absolute killer match for War Games if they do it again.
Absolutely, yeah. It would make a lot of sense if they were to go down that way. For a star rating, I've got a good idea where I think you might go with this.
5 stars all the way, baby. Great match. Loved it. We'll go back and watch it again. In fact, I did. I watched it again this morning after watching it last night.
I love it. It is the first match I probably would go back to watching. I'm going to give it 4.5. I really, really enjoyed it. This and the cage match for me were the real highlights of this show. And I love to see that with the gimmick matches that have been brought in as well, to being used to good use on this show. And as we go up to the comments here, C Nation did come up with a fantastic suggestion earlier on, saying that JD McDonough now going to be showing up to tell Damian Priest on Raw that I'm the only reason why you are an undisputed WWE Tag Team Champion. Do you reckon there's a chance now that JD McDonough will be a bit more welcomed into the Judgment Day?
I'd like to think so, but then see what you predicted with the main event, I thought was still going to happen. And then JD was going to join Judgment Day, and they were going to freebird the tag team titles, like New Day does, which I thought would have been a great idea. But I don't know now. This is the problem. I think he will go in, and I think like he's going to be the reason why. I reckon he's going to be the reason why the Judgment Day break up eventually.
I like it. There could certainly be that element to it. And I've got to say as well, Judgment Day holding up all the gold. It's always a pleasant sight to see. It looked really cool on the entranceway at the end of it. It did make me think that Rhea and Raquel should have been done earlier in the night, just so it kind of gave that element that Judgment Day, it felt like she was going to retain for the moment. But I will give it a flip side to that when we talk about their match of why it is well. It could have made sense as well. In fact, I'll do it now. Imagine if Rhea had lost, how that would have done to the story when she'd actually turned around and said that there's going to be changes if not everyone's holding gold. So everyone had done their part, but not her.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been the biggest flip I think anyone would have ever seen coming. But I think as well, it was probably more to do with pacing than anything with how the match order was played out. But yeah, I don't mean exactly what you mean. If Rhea had lost, it would have been, I don't know, it would have, just like I said, it would just been probably the biggest surprise of the night.
Absolutely. I think I would agree with you on that one. I've got another follow-up question as well. And you've already answered my question about Damian Priest if he would cash in later on. I sort of felt like it won't happen after that moment. I kind of was like, well, he's got those belts now. I don't see him doing it. But obviously with all those championship gold there, is it time to actually, drop or unify these tag team titles to where they have one title together? Because I don't know about you, but Judgment Day's colours, obviously, if you put red and blue together, you get purple.
But you know what I'd like to see? Custom tag straps, because we've never seen it. And I think Judgment Day would be the best place to start with them.
Purple straps.
Purple straps with silver or black plate. Well, not black because you won't see it, but silver plates, I think it'd be really good.
I think it could be quite tasteful. I think WWE should definitely do that going forward. We'll go to the CM Punk stuff later on, Temple, so we'll come back to those comments, don't you worry. Finn Balor will probably have a reign as whatever champion. Don't see him being WWE champion. I don't see neither at the moment. It's a shame, really, at this moment. But certainly, I think Finn Balor could be challenging for that title further down the line if Priest holds it and if they do eventually break up, which doesn't seem to be in sight anytime in the near future at the moment. CD says, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's undisputed tag title reign ended at the right time. Every title reign doesn't need to be 1 year. Do you know what? I kind of agree with that as well. Like when I look back at it, I thought they were going to build for Sami and KO versus the Street Profits after SmackDown this past week, but there's no reason why the Street Profits couldn't go for Judgment Day, and that certainly could be a fun feud as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's enough, like I said, there's enough people in both factions to do it. So yeah, I like the idea of it. It's again, it's just this whole dilemma. I suppose as well on the plus side, this gives an excuse for why the Judgment Day now have to be on Raw and SmackDown as well.
Absolutely. Of course, the big brand at the moment going on both shows really could try and take over WWE. I just think if Bianca Belair was to join Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, that's a ball game match set as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, but just it's WWE, so unfortunately we don't get no intergender wrestling, so it's our loss, unfortunately.
Seems to be the case here. We have been asked again about if Chad Gable will dethrone Gunther. If Chad Gable doesn't, then who do you think will dethrone Gunther? So you've said yes already that Chad Gable, but obviously, do you feel it won't be on board this upcoming week?
No. I think it will be a screwy finish, and Adam Pearce will do what Adam Pearce does, and he'll turn around and say, "Well, we're going to take this to Fastlane," and then there'll be a rematch, and then I think he'll do it at Fastlane.
Interesting. I don't know who I think would have thrown Gunther, but one thing's for sure. I think it should be a triple threat match or a fatal four-way, something where Gunther is not involved in the decision. That way he remains protected. I think that is the best way to do it. Usually wouldn't say that, but as it's a mid-card title, to push Gunther further up the card, you don't want him to fall back into the deck after losing the IC title, in my opinion. Temple says, I read that the Authors of Pain was backstage at this week's SmackDown. There's talks of them with Karrion Kross to continue the feud with the OC. Haven't seen those rumors myself, but I've got to say that I have heard about Authors of Pain being signed with WWE since last year, and obviously not being used. Doesn't surprise me after what happened with Eric Young, to be honest. So we'll see if that plays out.
Yeah, I think Eric Young was more of a producer kind of role to start with, and it was only when they got Bray back that they started using him in with that kind of stuff. But I actually like the idea of it. I think it gives them a reason to try and make something out of that Karrion Kross AJ Styles feud, because at the minute it just seems to be non-existent. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
No, absolutely no. We'll have to see what will happen and what will progress. American Nightmare says, not related to Payback, but what do you think about the scenario of Edge challenging and winning the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40, then David Priest cashing Money in the Bank on him, and then Edge announcing the retirement on Raw? I mean, for me, I'm not against the idea of a Priest and Edge match, and obviously with Money in the Bank, it does synonymous with Edge as well with the World Heavyweight Championship. The question is if Edge re-signs to begin with, but certainly fantasy booking's fun.
It is. I don't know if no discredit to Damien Priest, but I don't know if he's willing to be part of that elite club of people that have cashed in at a WrestleMania. So I don't know. At the minute, I don't think so. But there is 6 months till Mania, so time can change. Time will tell, and things can change.
Absolutely, and of course, American Nightmare does say if Edge resigns, of course. C-Nation did actually go on your thing here. If Judgment Day uses the Freebird rule, then Dirty Dominic would be a good triple champion, but I don't think they will. Obviously, mentioned JD McDonough as well, but we can't forget Dirty Dom in this conversation.
Yeah, it's just the thing is that I don't know, that NXT title seems to be a bit of a. Like I said, I appreciate it for the fact that we're allowed to get the Judgment Day in all 3 shows, but it's a case of. I don't know. I couldn't believe Dominic Mysterio freebirding with Priest and Balor, but I can believe JD more just purely for story-wise purposes.
Absolutely. And a suggestion here that maybe Damien Priest successfully cashes in, wins the World Heavyweight Championship, then gives up the tag team strap for it to just be Balor and JD to go on defend them from there. So there's a lot of suggestions of what Judgment Day could do with these tag team titles, whether it's a Freebird rule, whether it's changing members once Priest goes further up the ladder. So it looks like we've got quite a creative chat here of what could happen with this tag team title reign. And I must admit, I'm getting more and more excited seeing how it's going to play out just from our chat alone. Doing some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is why I'm really excited for Raw now, and I want to see what the story is with Judgment Day and how these tag titles are going to be dealt with. What's JD going to do? Is JD going to join them? So yeah, I'm actually really excited for Raw this week.
Yeah, me too. I've got to be honest. Then it's time for KO and Sami to have a feud, then join the World Heavyweight title picture. Do you know what? I can see a feud coming for Sami and KO, but not yet. Not yet.
No. Like I said, I think War Games has got to happen, for example, yet before we get to their split. And I think it's, for me, as much as Kevin is the more natural heel, I think for it to be almost justified, it has to be Sami that turns on Kevin.
So here's my reasoning of why I think not. Jey Uso is now on Raw on the same roster again with Sami Zayn. So I think the fact that Sami keeps getting involved with Jey Uso stuff and Jey Uso business, when KO has said repeatedly he's sick of the Bloodline, thought it was in the rearview mirror, it's going to be put back on his lap once again. Jey Uso could end up playing the Riddle card and being involved in 6-man tag team matches with these guys going forward. It could be Jey Uso that's helping these two against the Judgment Day in the short-term future, and it could be a thing that KO could have an issue with long-term that could force a heel turn.
That is the probably more logical reason for it to happen. I was simply playing off the fact that obviously Kevin was the one that turned on Sami back in NXT, but I do like the sound of it. Now you've just got to find me a 4th member for War Games.
Give me time. We've got plenty of time to Survivor Series. It's not going to be CM Punk, I'm sure of that, but hey, you never know. Crazy things have happened. We've mentioned Jey Uso, though, so let's talk about it, shall we then? The Grayson Waller effect, then. Obviously, we've talked about will Cody Rhodes go to SmackDown, but what was your reaction, then, obviously, with the Grayson Waller effect and Jey Uso returning in this segment?
I felt this was unnecessarily on the card. I felt that this really could have been dropped from the pay-per-view. Like, you've got Cody on there for the pop, and just to bring Jey back, this really, like, obviously I know Grayson is a SmackDown star, and you need a way to introduce Jey to Raw. this is probably the only way you could do it. But I just felt this was one segment that could have just not been on the show. But don't get me wrong, I like Jay's new music. I like Jimmy's as well. I think they're both great. But yeah, it just shouldn't have been on the card for me.
Absolutely. Are you starting to sound on this Bloodline storyline like a lot of people are on social media?
No, I don't think I'm souring on it. I just think that, like, I get like this I've been like this quite a few times with the Bloodline, but then something always changes, and they do something creative wise that just draws you back in again. This is what's been so good about it. It's just as you think it's dying, they do something to draw it back in. I think the problem with this was having Jimmy and Jey reconcile, and then Jimmy turns on Jey. I think that was the biggest problem so far. They just need to work out what's happening with that and where it goes from now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for me, it'd be interesting to know. Maybe from our chat as well. Maybe we can actually ask the question to get you all involved right now. Everyone that's watching, are you simply yes or no souring on the Bloodline storyline? Are you happy with where it's going? Just yes or no, and we'll pull up people's opinions in a couple of moments' time. But obviously, just for things right now, obviously with this, it's going to just see where we're going to be going forward. Obviously, with Jey Uso in WWE on the Raw, so like I said, I can see more stuff with Sami Zayn potentially happening that could lead with KO as well, the breakup further down the line. But obviously, keeping him away from Jimmy Uso on SmackDown is going to be an interesting thought. We mentioned it earlier on about the idea of Cody Rhodes potentially going to SmackDown. A feud with Jimmy Uso could be fun, but also in the meantime, we have seen the OC starting to feud with Jimmy Uso this week and Solo Sikoa. And of course, Solo Sikoa saying to Jimmy Uso, "You're out of the Bloodline when we say you are." Jimmy almost wanted to go back on side there. Are we starting to build war games with OC and the Bloodline?
Again, this is the whole joy of with their creative at the minute is that we're coming out of all these possibilities, but we ain't got a clue. You could roll a dice and you could roll a 6-sided dice and come up with 7. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't. Nothing makes sense at the minute. That's the good thing about watching. This is why for a long time WWE is really becoming must-watch TV, because you really want to see how these stories evolve and what's going to happen next.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to see how it's going to progress. And as it was said by CD at the start of this video, and I hope it's not done every year going forward now if they want to drag a storyline to WrestleMania. Jey Uso being traded to Raw. It's just delaying a story. It's what they did with Rey Mysterio and Dominic last year. It was clever last year, but it was delaying a story to make it progress slowly between now and WrestleMania. If Jimmy and Jey are on different shows, does this just make, like, instead of a long-term story, it's actually a short-term story, but they're just kind of delaying things with a massive hiatus in the middle?
It makes the Rumble must-see. I'll take you that much, because I presume both of them will be in the Rumble, and I reckon that's probably where the build will start for their WrestleMania match, if that's where they're going.
Absolutely. But will you care if it's taking a big gap between now and the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, absolutely, because there's still unfinished business. Like, it's the whole joy is that we have these memories of wrestling. It's kind of like, oh, we remember that these two have a rivalry, but it's kind of like, I think it's just giving them an exciting opportunity to go and do something on their own, which is something we've never really seen, especially from Jimmy. So it's going to be really good to see what he does between now and, say, the Rumble.
Absolutely. Well, let's go into the chat then. A couple of people answered the question about the Bloodline storyline, where it is at the moment. Temple Plays here saying Bloodline story has become backwards in my opinion, but I'm still enjoying it. So, of course, that's the most important thing. There is still enjoyment there. Mex with us as well saying, indifferent with the Bloodline stuff. Nothing really happens if Roman isn't there. Jimmy's appearance, reasoning and actions on SmackDown was nonsensical garbage, lol. And to be fair, I kind of agree with him to a degree with that, because I just feel like, I don't know, there just isn't enough there for me to really believe it with Jimmy at the moment. I need a more dastardly Jimmy rather than saying he's doing it because he loves Jey Uso, especially if he's now going to come calling back to the Bloodline. It just doesn't add up to me. The maths isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where they're coming from. Like, I'm sitting there trying to remember what actually happened on SmackDown, and it's like, there's still the whole thing with Solo as well. It's like, what's Solo doing? Because he just seems to be like a puppet. Like, he doesn't have his own two thoughts. Do you know what I mean? He's told to do this, go there, sit there, eat that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure there'll be something creatively done with it. It's just a case of, unfortunately, we have to wait and see what happens. But like I said a minute ago, the Bloodline, we tend to sour on it from time to time, but they'll do something and you'll be like, oh my God, this is the hottest thing in wrestling again.
Absolutely, yeah. Fingers crossed we'll get to that moment, because like you said there has been some moments where you think it in the past, then all of a sudden, boom, hottest story going, so we'll have to wait and see. But WrestleMania, we're here with a great comment here. One of the worst wrestling tropes in the world is, I'm leaving. returns 2 weeks later. It's pretty much standard. Yeah, I mean, for me, I will just say this quickly. I agree with this 100%. I'm going to go now with a very old school reference, but and an ECW reference as well. I remember when Sabu got injured by Taz back in, I remember, I have seen it since back in 96, but I do remember seeing clips on when Taz would call Sabu out and people would want Sabu to show up. I would have loved the idea because every time Jimmy, when he came out on Friday on SmackDown, everyone was chanting for Jey. The more you do it, the more people would chant Jey, 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 we want Jey, we want Jey. Has WWE given in a bit too early by bringing Jey back to TV? Would they have benefited by actually making us wait for a bit longer?
Like I said, this segment shouldn't have been on the pay-per-view for me. So yeah, they absolutely should have waited. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. It's like wrestler leaves Tuesday. The only one that's ever been actually of any interest was when Brian Pillman did it because he managed to get WCW to fire him genuinely. No, was it one of them? It was WCW, ECW. He managed to get one of them to genuinely fire him just so he could go to another company. So, like, props to Brian Pillman for doing it. But yeah, it's a rubbish trope, man. But yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's a case of, like I said, this shouldn't have even been on the pay-per-view. This dragged this out 20 minutes too long for me.
Absolutely. Yep, I can agree with that there. Wrestle Boom asking a very harsh question here for us, though. Thank God neither us or Rikishi. Let us know who is your favourite Uso, Jimmy or Jey?
At the minute, it has to be Jey because I haven't seen enough of Jimmy in a solo perspective. It's always been Jey because Jey's been injury-free most of the time. It's always Jimmy, I think, that's been injured.
I have to agree with you. I think Jey he's had the more time to shine this main event, Jey.
Yeah.
Jimmy's story, I think, will be interesting if he's given the chance to shine. We've already suggested ideas, maybe him and John Cena. I think I spoke about briefly on yesterday's stream. Obviously, that could be a potential that they could do going forward as well. John Cena has many potential rivalries on SmackDown. He's only just returned. But Jimmy as well, like we said there, could be something with Cody if Cody is traded to SmackDown. So there are things to do for Jimmy Uso. But the most important thing, Jimmy needs 2 or 3 big wins because Jey has got himself where he's been going for the championship against Roman on a top 4 pay-per-view of the year. Jimmy hasn't done that yet. So I think Jimmy could do 1 or 2 big wins leading into his program with him and Jey.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm thinking about it more and more. The Cody Rhodes one makes sense because the fact that Cody's the one that brought back Jey. So take him over to SmackDown. Jimmy be like, you brought my brother back, blah, blah, blah. He quit, all this kind of stuff. And I think, like I said, it'd be a great way to elevate Jimmy, putting him some quality matches with Cody Rhodes. Is Jimmy going to get to the point where he's going to be in a main event against Roman Reigns? I don't think so between now and Mania when we think at the earliest Roman's going to lose. So, no, I don't think so.
If Jimmy really loved Jey, that should have been a part of the storyline direction that Jimmy built himself up to go against Roman, mainly because of the fact that it could be hypocrisy showing on the heel side. The fact he wanted to protect his brother from becoming Roman, but really deep down it's him that wanted to become Roman. That would have made much more sense for the story, I would have felt.
Yeah, the whole rivalry of why should you be tribal chief? We're brothers. Like, it'd be funny to see which one's older because if, like, for instance, if Jimmy was, say, for instance, 2 minutes older, he should be like, I'm older than you. Yeah, Jimmy should be like, I'm older than you. I should be tribal chief, and it would force the rivalry naturally.
There you go. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. Absolutely does. We'll move on in the meantime, though, and we'll go through some of your comments, and then we'll go with the last 2 matches. Then we'll just strictly do your comments to the end of the stream. WrestleMania says, KO needs a world title, man. The guy is incredible. He really is.
Been saying it for years. I'm still waiting to see this special ring gear he had made.
I'm still hurt he lost to Goldberg in such a short time. I'll never get over it.
Don't. I still have nightmares about it, Steve. I wake up in a cold sweat just going, Goldberg!
If we ever do watch-alongs and that match ends up, it wouldn't be a very long watch-along, but maybe it would for us moaning instead of the actual match itself.
The only Goldberg match I want to watch as a watch-along is the one where he beats Brock Lesnar in like 56 seconds or however long it is. That's the only time I'll be content with watching a Goldberg match.
Well, we're doing a short, ladies and gentlemen. Richard here says, it's time for KO and Sami Zayn to win the titles back. Richard, you're entitled to your opinion. And do you know what? Maybe the rivalry isn't finished. You may get your wish at some point in the next few weeks on Monday Night Raw. And the suggestion here for War Games here, Judgment Day versus Edge, Edge of Stars, Rey Mysterio, and LA Knight. Loving the combination there. Temple says Judgment Day of Balor, Priest, Dominic, JD. That's a lot of names in quick succession. KO, Sami Zayn, and DIY there. Loving it indeed.
Shout.
That's a fun shout.
That's an amazing shout. I would love that.
We can only hope. Colton Gunn, of course, we've got our good friend Eric Douglas in the house there, but guns up, my friend, unless you're Cash Wheeler. Liv dethrones Rhea at Mania.
That's possibly the greatest line ever.
I shouldn't have done it.
Brilliant.
Still, I take it back. I take it back. Surprise, Trish didn't cash in.
At least you're not as harsh as the British crowd in my section are all in, man, because they were horrible.
I know.
Sorry,
I've said in the comments we shouldn't be doing comments like that, but hey, what can I say? The tongue slipped. WrestleMania UK says this tag match was terrific, match of the night, and I'm surprised at a Judgment Day win. I was surprised as well. It was a big shock for me. You wasn't. You predicted it. You got it. You knocked it out the park there, didn't you? CD says, I think Finn Balor is getting kicked out of the Judgment Day. They're forming a tag team with JD McDonough. Seems to be certainly the way they are teasing it at this particular moment. Although now they are united for the time being, so that looks to be on delay.
I think that, you know, at some point, I think the actual one we're going to get is Finn versus Priest for that Money in the Bank contract. That's the one I can more see at the minute, just because. Yeah. It'd be the reason why they split up, and Finn wants it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that would be the angle for me.
Absolutely. Taylor suggesting more cinnamon toast crunch. Let's hope not at this point.
No, that's my wife's friend saying that she's going to give me some more cinnamon toast crunch. That's fine.
Oh, there you go. Fair enough. Fair enough. Is there any sharing going on? I've never tried it. Street Profits teased the match with the D'Angelo family last Tuesday in NXT. That's also true. So Street Profits could be going for all the gold at this point. Imagine unifying all the tag team titles, eh?
Why are we all of a sudden getting NXT as a third brand instead of a developmental? Where's this come from all of a sudden? Why are we getting cross-branded stuff, man? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm all for it, but we're about 4 years too late, if I'm honest. But yeah, hey, Street Profits as NXT Tag Team Champions? Absolutely.
Those TV deals are coming up. That's pretty much, I think, the gist. I think Nick Khan's trying to make that money. I think that's Fair enough. It is. Sinish says, well, it makes sense for the tag team championships to be called Undisputed because they are the only tag team championships on the main roster for the men. Good point indeed there. And also saying that it's beautiful storytelling. Finn Balor finally gets revenge on Seth Rollins. I think that's something he mentioned earlier on this, which we'll try and find in a minute. So I think he suggests Seth Rollins and Nathan Frazier take the titles off the Judgment Day. Rey Mysterio has the United States Championship for one reason, and the reason is to put over Santos Escobar at WrestleMania 40, Rey's retirement match. That certainly could be a suggestion there that I think could happen. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great way to elevate Santos Escobar. I think that, like, without trying to sound really critique, but I think that lucha-based wrestlers don't get a fair cop in WWE compared to, like, there was Rey Mysterio, and then there's kind of like he's on the top of the mountain, and then everyone else is kind of still at the base, and like you could probably throw a few names out that have had some decent runs, but they've never built anyone to that level. And Santos Escobar is fantastic, and like his heel work is great, and I'd like to really see him be pushed as like a top star because he's unreal, man.
He's money. He really has got the potential to go all the way, and I think the return to the heel side will be good for him long term because I feel like he's a bit too squeaky clean as a babyface in the LWO. I think that they need to go back to Legado at some point.
Just need to heel and LWO. That's all you need, man. Start making them a proper heel faction instead of a moneymaker.
It should be good indeed there. Big smiles come to my face a couple of times because thank you to those in the chat who have brought up Cash Wheeler. Temple plays loving the Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Affecting the Theory could be a fun tag team name.
Do you know what? I like it. It's actually pretty good. I do it.
I think it's good. I like it. WrestleBroom here with some fantasy booking as well. Finn Balor, Dominic, JD McDonough, and Dijak versus Seth Rollins, KO, Sami, and Breaker, and Jey Uso at War Games there. So a lot of War Game suggestions coming flying in as well. Richard still wanting Zoey Stark in the Judgment Day there. I've seen that there in a comment there as well. Also, WrestleMania UK saying if there's anyone getting kicked out of the Judgment Day, I reckon it's actually Priest. And I've got to say, I thought the same. Originally, my thought going into it was that Priest would lose the tag team match and he would cash in Money in the Bank and he would be the one that would be leaving this show as a champion and Finn Balor not. But yet the idea would have been put across that if, say, Damien Priest had a problem with JD McDonough, something like that would cost him the tag team title match, that Damien Priest was looking out for himself rather than the group. That's why I thought Damien Priest was going to get kicked out after this show. But they're tag team champions right now, so that's not happening in the near future. But certainly, if Damien Priest is someone that is a letdown of why they lose tag team titles, maybe it could be something in the future. Who knows?
No, he's. I liked your prediction. I actually really liked it, and I was like, do you know what? That would be fantastic. But then, like I said, watching the show last night, I was like, I really hope Priest does cash in because I really want Judgment Day to have all the gold now.
I think it would be. It would have been fun, and it seems like a good opportune time with Seth Rollins' storyline to have done that. But obviously, I think they want to continue in the meantime. Obviously, now we know with Nakamura, it looks like feud may continue. So perhaps maybe Fastlane is the way. A fast lane to get to the championship. Who knows for Money in the Bank holder? They're going to get worse, these jokes, ladies and gentlemen. I can feel it. WrestleMania UK says lucha-based wrestlers fail in WWE because they spend the entire time trying to make them either Rey Mysterio or Eddie Guerrero. Let people be themselves. And do you know what? 100% agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% agree with that. An American Nightmare says, I'm afraid that Jey Uso I'm afraid that Jey Uso isn't going to be that special on Raw without the Bloodline. Ooh, what do you reckon? Do you agree with that?
No, Jay's got the ability to cut a really good promo. Do you know what I mean? He's been doing it for so long now, and he has a great character work and great mic skills that I think he can get himself over. Plus, he's a baby face at the minute, and everyone loves him, man. He's going to do really well on his own. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I am as well, to be fair. I think he will actually succeed better on Raw, and I think it will help, as we said, play to a number of storylines going into WrestleMania season. But we've been talking about Judgment Day, quite a lot of depth in recent. It's got the chat definitely flowing as well, talking about the Judgment Day. So let's talk about one other member of the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley defeating Raquel Rodriguez. Now, I must admit, I feel like I had one eye on this match. I don't know. I just wasn't as gripped into it as I should have been. I don't know quite what it was. I don't know if it's the predictability factor. I felt maybe this match was slightly sloppy in places. I don't know if it was just me, NXSteve, on my own for this.
I can see what you mean. I think for me, the point of this is that Rhea can go the distance because like every other match Rhea's had has been like sub 10 minutes, squash match mostly, and do you know what I mean, pinfall. And the fact that you get someone, like I said earlier, that's bigger than Rhea, and Rhea can still put on a dominant display and win, I think is probably the positive that we're supposed to take from this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. There is aspects of the match where you're like, it's not as flown as what it is. It could be cleaner. But then I think it's a case of, is this WWE's fault for just having Rhea mostly having squash matches most of the time? Because like, I know she can have great matches, but I think the fact is, you know what I mean? When you do the same thing over and over again and then you change it, it's kind of like you have to get used to doing longer matches, and it's kind of like, is that where they've shot themselves in the foot with this one?
Absolutely. Well, it feels like Mex agrees with us here. This match wasn't it. Rhea and Raquel can do better than this. I agree. I do. I feel that I've seen their work in NXT together. They had a fantastic match together, and they actually made reference to it on commentary. The fact that, you know, when they said, because Raquel won their last match in NXT that sent Rhea to the main roster, and Rhea, when she was asked about it, said, well, that was a long time ago. You know, we've moved on since then. There's no way that I'm going to be losing this time around. Of course, Rhea did retain in the end, of course, with her finisher. But I don't know. They may go back to this and do it again. I don't know.
I mean, if you think back to Mania and you think of Rhea versus Charlotte, killer match, like arguably one of the best, like was argued for like, should it have main evented that first night on Mania, like unreal. And it's like, is it maybe Raquel that's the problem? Because they haven't got as much in-ring chemistry as usual. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Charlotte Flair is the greatest women's wrestler ever at this point because the proof's in the pudding. But like, I don't know what it is, man. Maybe it's just like, if they were to do this again, like maybe like I said, this could be the start of a trilogy of matches, and it's a case of, all right, just give them something solid to start with and just build to better things. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I think they were all over the arena in NXT for New Year's Eve a few years ago, and I thought maybe a gimmick match might work well for them going down if they were to do a rematch of this. But it'll be interesting to see where they go forward. Obviously, Rhea did retain. Obviously, like I say, it would have been probably interesting if Rhea had been the one to drop the championship here, but Mummy's been so dominant right now, and you can't see her losing anyway. Dom did get involved in this match as well. Of course, he wasn't 100% clean, so there is a reason to do a rematch if they want to, and top what they did here.
Yeah, I think the gimmick match is probably the best way to go. I think maybe that's what made the original one in NXT a lot better, was the fact that they were all over, like, it was like, what, Falls Count Anywhere or whatever it was. I can't remember. No Holds Barred, Rage in a Cage, Slam in a Van. I don't know, but yeah. So maybe that's what they need. I don't know. It's just a case of what gimmick match. I suppose it has to make sense for me, for everyone, story wise, creative wise, narrative wise. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of great comments that have come in here, by the way, now, and I'll pull up in a second. But just want to get your star rating for Rhea and Raquel quickly.
Oh, I'm going to go 2-star. I think it was, for what it was okay. It's just a banger. It was probably a Raw main event show match.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2-star as well. There's Mexico. These two can do better, and I think that they will do better given another opportunity. Just think something just didn't click on this night. There was the positioning on the card, what it was. Just something wasn't right. And like you said, it's a longer show as well. I don't know, maybe that was just the point where, I don't know if crowd-wise, certainly myself-wise, I just kind of drained for that match at that point. They kind of got a horrible spot the match before the main event. Insert Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox into the story with Rhea and Raquel. Both Dakota and Tegan was robbed in Raquel's NXT Women's Championship run. This is a suggestion here from Temple Plays. Certainly Tegan Nox is on Raw. They could do something with her in that situation. Obviously Dakota Kai with damage control on SmackDown at the moment, still not medically cleared at this moment. But would you like to see someone else get involved in the storyline, give them something to do? Maybe a Tegan Nox?
This is the same problem we had in the prediction show when someone asked us about the women's division, and it's like, who's out there? In this case of, I don't think there's anyone in there. I don't think there's anyone on the roster apart from maybe Piper Niven that could compete in ring with with Rhea and Raquel, just on a pure size-wise stature. Whereas, I suppose if you used to throw someone in like a Xia Li, you'd have to put I think if you're going to put someone in there that's smaller, they're going to be the ones that are going to get that surprise win. And like, if you were going to do a triple threat, for example, with Rhea, Raquel, and then a third person, it's going to be that small person that steals the win, kind of.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. It could make sense to do that going forward there. CD says Raquel Rodriguez giving Dirty Dom Mysterio Power Slam was funny. I like that. I like this from WrestleMania UK. Sam and Evan don't give WWE ideas.
Well, there's surprised no one's ever taken a Rage in a Cage, to be fair.
I know they've been, well, that's usually like the movie thing you get from the 80s. It's going to be Rage in a Cage, like that kind of vibe, isn't it? So, but Slam in the Van, move over ambulance match. This is your new one. Just a white
slam
van.
In the van.
Just slam in the van. Absolutely. Perfectly done. But also, Rhea and Raquel need a car crash match, and maybe not a van at all. Just get the car in instead. We don't need to see that with the women. Lesnar versus Goldberg-esque could be the way forward with these two.
It might be the safest bet at the minute. But then again, like I said, we never know. Maybe they're going to build to something better. So just wait and see, unfortunately.
Absolutely, indeed, there. We had a comment above here that I did miss at the time. There it is from CD, Seth Rollins, and these to get the World Heavyweight Championship taken off of him. And that's when we get Seth Rollins and Nathan Frazier versus Finn Balor and JD McDonough for the tag team titles. A bit of fantasy booking there from CD. And you got to love to see it. A bit of mentorship. Certainly been done it, and as Seth Rollins has been mentioned, feels like a good time to mention that main event. Then the World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins retaining over Shinsuke Nakamura. Of course, the story wrote itself, which meant it was going to be a good match. Obviously, Nakamura did have the great Muta sitting at ringside watching him. They'd made reference to their match earlier this year. Obviously, Nakamura's first singles match, PLE main event ever. Of course, he has been involved in Money in the Bank previously, but when he won Royal Rumble, that wasn't the main event of the show. When he faced AJ for the title, never a main event of the show. This is his first one ever. And of course, they played the story of Seth's back. I like the way they did it with the table spot earlier on in the match. Obviously, it looked like that Shinsuke was keeping advantage. Even when Seth was trying to get back into the match with the frog splash, Nakamura found a way to keep on top. Hit a Kinshasa from behind, waited for Seth to get up, and of course Seth kind of collapsed back down to the ground. Of course, WWE's cameras didn't catch that perfectly at the time. A few reverse sequences, and Seth out of nowhere hitting a curb stomp for the victory. NXSteve, your thoughts of Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura?
Probably one of Shinsuke's best matches on the main roster, really. It almost gave me false hope that he was going to win, and I think that was the most important part. I mean, just to start off with the opening package alone, obviously there's the whole promo that they run on Raw the other night was fantastic. But even like the cartoon style animation thing they did, I thought was great. It was like, this is very
Like, this is how Nakamura is supposed to be presented, and like the whole storytelling. And I thought, this is quality stuff, man. This is what we should have had 3-4 years ago when he come up. And yeah, like I said, the whole match itself, it gave me false hope. And like I genuinely thought that maybe we could see a title change tonight. Maybe this is the point where Nakamura wins it. But then, unfortunately, in the back of my head, I was still sitting there thinking, nah, Seth's retaining because Priest is going to cash in because of you. And I was like, curse you, Steve. Curse you.
Well, it didn't happen in the end. I mean, Seth Rollins did manage to retain. I've got to say, you make fantastic points there. The presentation, Shinsuke Nakamura, in the last month is what I want to see permanently going forward in WWE Shinsuke. Yeah. It's been the best Shinsuke I've seen since he's actually even signed with the company. I mean, like, take away NXT takeovers as well. This has been my favorite version of Nakamura. And I mean, of course, Michael was saying reference, this is what we've seen in Japan with Shinsuke Nakamura. And I can't say I've seen too much of his work from New Japan days. Yeah. I've only actually seen the AJ Styles match from Wrestle Kingdom, believe it or not. I don't go that far into the archives yet on New Japan World, but certainly it'll be interesting to see more of this side of Nakamura moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way that I think he needs to be presented now. I mean, from the impression I got, this is the start of a trilogy of matches, for example. So we're going to get more of this. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. There was obviously the network exclusive where this is what grabbed me as well, was that they had Nakamura attack Seth after the show went off the air. So this is like, you could tell from the way the show ended, really, that Nakamura was going to do something, because they had him in shot and he was in the background and he was pacing and it was going, oh, right, is he going to do it? He's going to do it. Then the show goes off the air. But so, yeah, I'm glad we're going to see more of this. I'm seriously considering now that Nakamura could be the one to take this title off of him, though, because like I said, this match gave me false hope, and I think that's what it was supposed to do. And now it's given me the possibility and the mentality that Nakamura can go on to win that World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like you said, with the way that the show finished was a bit awkward. I was sitting there thinking that attack's going to happen, and I saw there was like 4 minutes left. I thought, maybe there is a cash-in after all here. That was a video package of the whole show. Okay, fair enough. Let's turn it off. But at the same time, like, obviously, this story looks like it will continue. Perhaps, again, Fastlane, it could be some sort of gimmick match, maybe something that's not going to be too kind for Seth Rollins' back. What have we got in mind that could be of something that could do that? Obviously, a tables match is something that comes to my mind, but doesn't feel like that's too much of a World Heavyweight Championship feud. To have a tables match to conclude it, unless you're playing WWE 2K. What do you reckon? Something like Hell in a Cell or something? What could work well for these two?
I'm trying to think, because obviously I'm trying to take it. Like, it's with Seth Rollins, you could literally have anything. I'm trying to think of it from a Nakamura point of view, and I was like, could Nakamura do a strap match, for example? Because obviously most of the time the strap is something that's used across the back, but I think it just has to be like a nose hold barred. Sorry, this is a nose hold barred match. Yeah, like a no hold barred match, or not a street fight, because obviously, like, we've just had one, but something to like a hardcore match, for example, something where they have to be forced to use weapons. Like a table match, I don't think it's enough for me, if I'm honest. I'd really want to see more, and I'd want to see more of what they could do. I mean, a ladder match, I think, is probably your safest bet. You string the title 20 feet up in the air. You force Seth to have to climb a ladder with a bad back. It's probably the best way to go.
Maybe TLC?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I mean, it's a ladder match, so like tables and chairs are always inadvertently used in a ladder match anyway. But yeah, like the whole idea of a TLC match would be good. It's just, I think the key aspect is the ladder and making Seth have to climb for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang on. Eric, don't worry. If I was laughing, he said I was laughing during the comment. Yeah, if it was his comment. No, it wasn't your comment at all. I was laughing other things. Don't worry. Like with the World Heavyweight Championship, it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward. And I mean, WrestleMania UK here, it says like ladder matches. Well, loves that idea. Says we don't get enough of those world title ladder matches. And of course, one that I think is a fantastic one, Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels from No Mercy back in 2008, which is down as one of the best World Heavyweight title ladder matches ever. So certainly has been a while since we've seen those. So I think it's a good way to go. I kind of, in a way, I'm glad this rivalry is carrying on. It didn't feel like it was ready to be finished for me. WrestleBoom suggested 2 out of 3 falls match as well. Maybe a 3 stages of hell could be a way just to add an ante to that, so they have some more stipulations to it as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward with it.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's for me. It's obviously the key point of focus is the back injury, and I'm trying to I'm starting to sitting there thinking, racking my brain, like what do you do to make someone with a bad back have to go through even more torture? And it's like I said, in the minute off the top of my head, a ladder match is the obvious one.
I think so indeed. What's your star rating for this match?
3.5. I thought it was good. It gave me false hope, but like I said on the prediction show, I try not to get too excited about Nakamura matches, and this was a lot better. But I know that he can do more and do better.
Yeah, I agree with you. 3.5 stars is what I'm going to give it as well. Just quickly then, and people can join in the chat as well with what their rating of the show overall was. What would be your score out of 10?
I'm probably going to say 7. I said my gripes with the show. Corey Graves was irritating. It was probably 20 minutes too long. We had 3 quality matches, a couple of subpar matches, a segment that shouldn't have been on the show. So I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
I agree with you. I think a 7 out of 10 fits well nicely with this one. I think there was a fun show overall. I think there were some fun moments, a lot of the right results. One result that I didn't predict to happen, although I think now in hindsight, I think it is the right result in Judgment Day winning those tag team championships. So yeah, I think all in all, this is for a B pay-per-view, this has actually done enough to keep things ticking over, to keep me interested to see what they're going to do with the Fallout. And as we go then towards Fastlane, should be quite interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean,
go on, you take over.
I was just say between the pair of us, I think we only got one match prediction wrong each. I think I predicted Austin Theory to win the US title. You predicted Ray, and obviously the tag team titles, which you predicted to retain, and I predicted the change. So we did pretty well. Like it is what it is, a B-list pay-per-view with predictable matches. So it's nice to get those odd changes in there.
Absolutely, indeed. There, CD gives this a 7 out of 10 show as well. And just to see, we've got a suggestion here for another match that could be good for someone's back, a submission match. How do you fancy that?
Oh yes. Do you know what? For as simple as it is, it makes total sense. Absolutely makes you the hit and another perfectly great. I can't even think of the word. Now my brain's
stipulation.
Going. A great stipulation. There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, great stipulation.
I think it'll be great, working really, really well for them to do that there. Have been suggested as well, TSC match at Crown Jewel. That means it would definitely carry over another 2 shows if that's the case. I believe the next one we've got is Fastlane at the, I think, first or second weekend of October. That will be going
October, I think it is.
Yeah, there we go. And we've got No Mercy the week before for NXT. The All Out crowd will be chanting CM Punk tonight. They certainly will. They were booing Tony Khan last night before this match even got underway last night. It's all over social media. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura in a, oh goodness, Horror Solo match, which is a style of Japanese wrestling. Well, NXT is on the Google search in the meantime, just to help me out with that one. Don't think I've seen one of these matches, to be honest, but it's a style of Japanese wrestling. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, like I said, I've never even heard of it. So
no.
Let's have a look. Google. Predominant style of professional Japanese wrestling that is developed in Japan. The term comes from the Japanese pronunciation of professional wrestling, which is it still doesn't tell me what it is, but it sounds cool. But do you know what the problem with that is you're going to try and have to get Michael Cole to pronounce it. That's going to be the biggest problem.
Or Corey Graves repeating it over and over again.
Oh, okay, yeah. It'd just be Corey Graves ripping on Michael Cole for his killing the pronunciation of the word.
Absolutely. Max says here that I think Priest and Balor winning the tag straps. Priest ain't cashing in anytime soon.
No,
and I have to there's no reason to. And here's the thing. This is a good time if you had to cash in Money in the Bank, especially if you're an up-and-comer that's not been in the world title scene before, because it's past SummerSlam. We're not a Royal Rumble WrestleMania season yet. It's a good time to experiment with someone as a world champion. The best time otherwise to do that is just after WrestleMania. Could Damian Priest be one of those that is actually a late cash-in with the Money in the Bank this year? Or even next year, should I say.
If you want some serious heel heat and he cashes in on a certain Cody Rhodes, for example, on the Raw after Mania or whatever, or on the SmackDown after, it'd be a good way to get some heat on him.
Could be indeed. You never know. We'll keep an eye out and see how it'll be. But Mex do agree indeed. Nation says Seth Rollins losing that whatever title at Survivor Series to a Damien Priest cash-in. So CD still sees it happening, but at the Survivor Series in Chicago, a show that probably won't feature CM Punk, which we will promise several plays to mention in a couple of minutes' time. Great to see Shinsuke in the main event scene, even if temporarily, says American Nightmare. Have to agree with that. And also, we've got here Seth Rollins. Come up in a second for us. Seth Rollins has held the World Heavyweight title now for 3 to 4 months. They said this title was designed to give others opportunities. With that being said, at this point, Seth has held this title for too long. Do you agree?
Yeah, kind of. Like I said, this match gave me false hope. So I thought, wow, they might actually pull the trigger on Nakamura tonight. But I don't know. I wouldn't be. The thing is, I'm not against the idea of seeing Nakamura versus Seth again. I want to see more of it because I liked it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a case of just biting your tongue for a minute and just giving it a couple more months. I don't know. Yeah, but I know what mix means. Yeah, it's like I honestly thought he would have dropped it by now because obviously, well, as I've said before, Seth's in a Marvel film that's due out next year. He'd win it back by that time because of obviously promotional reasons for the company.
No, I see your point of view there, and I think that we will see how it progresses, certainly, with that. But Seth Freakin wise, for me, I've been okay with his world title run at this point, but I would say that it's getting near the time where I think a change would be probably good, just to see it freshen up. Like you say, if the same champions all the time, it does become a bit repetitive.
Do you know what? I can actually probably see this Nakamura Seth being an excuse to write Seth off TV for a while. That's probably the angle they're going to go with.
It wouldn't be a bad shout as well for him to then return, say, like Royal Rumble season. That wouldn't be a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
Fastlane, Rhea Ripley, Raquel for the Women's World Championship. Dirty Dom in the shark cage. What do you reckon?
Love it. Dominic in the shark cage. Love it. Do it.
I think definitely do it, especially if he's he's afraid of heights gimmick. I think it could be quite fun as well.
Or Dominic Mysterio on a pole match.
Thanks, Vince Russo. Yeah, absolutely superb. Who do you think would have thrown Rhea Ripley?
At the minute, I think Becky's the only one that has the realistic possibility at the minute. I don't think there's any other women that have been built to a level that can dethrone her at the moment.
Absolutely. Just to say, by the way, it's not a stipulation. This match is basically
That's just a style.
It's just strong style. That's it. It is strong style in Japanese. That is pretty much all that it means. So there we go. Got some confirmation for us there. So they could do the match in his own style of match. Strong style. Well, I suppose strong style means that it would be quite aggressive, and every move being done to Seth Rollins' back would be quite painful. So there we go. Well, I'll tell you what. That is pretty much Payback reviewed in 1 hour and 30 minutes. I think it's not a bad run time since the show was 3.5 hours. So what I will do quickly just before we finish things off here today, I'm going to ask everyone to hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video. Make sure to share the video with a friend as well if you don't mind. You can double clothesline that subscribe button together if you haven't already. But I'm going to ask you a question because obviously I did the stream on my own yesterday. What is your reaction to CM Punk being fired from AEW?
It's probably the last time we'll ever see. Well, let me rephrase this. We will probably never see CM Punk in an in-ring capacity ever again. I said in your comments last night, I said I think the only time we'll possibly ever see him again, if ever, is when WWE want a cheap pop and they need a big name for a main eventer for a Hall of Fame entry. And I think even then that's a stretch because I don't know, time could change, but I don't think anyone out there could afford CM Punk. I don't think WWE want him back. There's a lot of wrestlers that are on the roster that currently don't like him. Seth Rollins being one. Triple H obviously doesn't have a fond history with him. So yeah, I think that we were blessed to see him all in. Sorry, I think I'm glad I went. I'm glad I got the opportunity to say, yep, I've seen CM Punk wrestle live. But yeah, I do think it's the last time we'll ever see him in some sort of wrestling capacity.
Do you reckon it was the right move?
Yes and no. Yes, because he obviously has an aura around him, and it seems to be that everywhere he goes, he has problems or has issues. And it's like, I don't know if it's a personality kind of thing, because there's people on the AEW roster that he gets along with, that like he's really close with. FTR, for example, like but then there just seems to be more people than that he rubs up the wrong way. And on a no person, like on a no, sorry, like I said, yeah, and on a no personally, it's like, well, CM Punk was a big draw. This could damage the company financially because obviously, as we know, Collision was made for CM Punk. That was the whole point of the show. So it's a case of, is that now going to ruin their TV deal for Collision? He is a massive draw. We're not going to see conclusions to matches such as MJF Punk. That match was, unfortunately, it was the biggest thing. It was a case of, this was the whole point of this real world title thing, and why he was going to go on to, like, we was going to at some point get MJF versus CM Punk for that real world title, or for like, do you know what I mean, a unification match. And like, I presumed MJF would have gone over because it would have been the right move to do, but yeah, we're just never going to get it, unfortunately. But it's a sad time. But like I said, I think we should, for what it was, like, I was watching the Wrestle Talk video earlier, and Ollie Davis run a tribute video, and he shows the clip of them watching the live stream when CM Punk came back, and I can imagine there was loads of people like that. Like, I was gassed the night he returned, because it was like, it's been 7 long years, and I think it's just a case of just appreciating what we got in ring wise for the last couple of years at CM Punk. Like, as much as the guy has whatever going on in his personal life and with people backstage, at the end of the day, the guy was great in ring. He knew how to tell a story, and I think that's the most important thing to take from it, is that we lived in a generation where we had CM Punk.
Absolutely, we did indeed. There was some reports going around. I'm not sure if I can say his name properly, but it was like Nick Housen, I believe, not related to Dan. He had apparently come out, I believe, it was House of Wrestling, something like this, one of the sources, I forget the name of it, when it was supposed to be a meeting before All In. It was supposed to be with the Elite, CM Punk to patch things up, was going to bury the hatchet. I think FTR were going to be there as well. Of course, Tony Khan was going to be present, but the Elite scrapped it last minute. Felt like that that may have played a bit of upsetment going into CM Punk, going into this All-In show. CM Punk was not collected at the airport, like all other AEW talent, had to find his way to the show with great folk in the UK, obviously helping him along the train, along the tube. We'd seen pictures actually of proof that CM Punk was finding his way to the show. Probably not a good way to go through as well. Obviously, with the Jungle Boy Jack Perry stuff that's been going around with the broken glass. What do you feel with all this? Do you feel that, I mean, obviously CM Punk seems to be a constant. You talk about Brawl Out, we talk about Brawl In, you talk about stuff that's been going on, problems with, I think it was Ryan Nemeth is one of them. Hangman Adam Page couldn't record at a Collision taping. There's stuff where CM Punk is certainly not innocent in this situation, it feels, but at the same time, do you feel that perhaps maybe he's been slightly hard done by as well? Is there a possibility that there could be being put on more than just CM Punk here?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has their breaking point, and eventually it's just got to the point where it's like, I mean, if he was willing to have this meeting with the Elite and to work out their differences, I mean, I presume that was like to possibly allow more talent to be on the Collision roster, because obviously from what you read that certain talents weren't allowed to be on Collision. Even just a case of burying the hatchet and just being like, look, let's just start again, whatever, we can do business. Because I think, like we said a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, it'd be like, they'd be fools not to have either Kenny versus Punk or the Elite versus CMFTR as a match, a headline match for a pay-per-view, because it's a massive draw. And I think, like, if you look at it from that point of view, there was business there to be done. Take for what the report says, and apparently the Elite cancelled the meeting. Yeah, it almost feels like again, I'm only taking it from this one report, so don't take my word as gospel, but it almost feels like Punk just got to a breaking point. And I mean, like, I don't know what his people skills are like. I imagine this whole thing with Jack Perry, and it's just a case of, look, dude, if you want to have a long career, don't use ring. I imagine it was a case of if you want to have a long career, don't use real glass. And I don't know if it's a case of that's rubbed Jack Perry up the wrong way or whatever. Maybe he's just not a people person and he doesn't come across well. And you can meet some people and like everything they say sounds condescending, but they mean it in a good way. I don't know. This is the problem we have with all these dirt sheets, is that we'll never know the truth
Like we'll always get, but like we may get both sides of the story. We may only ever get one side of the story. We may get no sides of the story, but it's just what it is, unfortunately, and it's a shame because like I said, I think this is going to cause more problems for AEW in the long run. Like we've seen the clip of Tony Khan coming out before Collision last night, getting booed out the building. I think AEW is now going to be what WWE was when Punk left WWE, and it's going to be a case of every time AEW get in or around Chicago, or any time that they do something that will pee off the fans, they're going to start getting CM Punk chants, and they're going to be in the exact same position WWE was 10 years ago, or however long it was. And I think that's going to be their stigma now.
It's a really good point you make there. Just needs to a follow-up question quickly. Do you think there's a chance that AEW may have started an alienated territory like Chicago?
It's a possibility, but then this is the thing now. Like maybe it's not a bad thing, because let's look at it. Let's look at this week, for example. They've just had All In Wembley, and then a week later they're having All Out in Chicago. Pulling out of Chicago for All Out makes sense from a production wise, from a story wise, from wrestler wise. So do you know what I mean? It makes sense that like this All Out pay-per-views, it feels flat because we've had a weak build to most of it. But let's be honest, there's not many crowds that are like a Chicago crowd, and I think it's just going to be one of them things, really. Like I don't know whether time will tell, and whether time, like they say, time heals all wounds. I don't know, but I just think that it's going to be a case of every time AEW go to Chicago, whether they do keep doing All Out in Chicago, it's just going to be berated by CM Punk chants.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to the comments then, see what the comments have got to say, and then we'll wrap up the stream here today. But it's been good to get your take on the firing of CM Punk. I'm sure a lot more is going to come out with it. Temple Place put this in at, over an hour ago, and we promised we'd get it up for him, so here it is. Going to say this once about CM Punk being fired. If you're not there to wrestle and entertain the viewers at home and the people in attendance, why are you here? Get along with your co-workers, even though there was friction between sad party, to be a better company. So that's Temple's take on it.
Yeah, but then I suppose from some aspect, you actually you look at All In this weekend, and he could have easily just walked away and not done the match with Joe. I mean, don't get me wrong, Joe probably persuaded him heavily because he's supposed to have been like one of the biggest crowds Joe's ever performed in front of as well. But Punk easily could have walked away from that match. And the fact that he went out, yes, he got booed, but he got cheered as well. And do you know what I mean? And I think from a performance aspect, the fact that there's people out there that still cheer for him, despite what's going on, do you know what I mean? I think it has to be something for him. It's just, the thing is now is just that all this has come out since. And yes, it's probably turned more people against him, but at the end of the day, I'm a CM Punk fan for wrestling, not for what goes on behind the curtain.
Yeah, same. I've always been a fan of what I see in front of the camera, not behind, which is why if he turned up somewhere else, doesn't matter where it is, I will be watching. I'm a CM Punk fan.
I'll pop. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, some great comments have come in from WrestleMania UK as well. For TK to say, I felt my well-being, life was in danger. He may have exaggerated, but that's your manager. Defo got to be sacked. It did feel like it was a bit of an exaggeration, but obviously we don't know, haven't seen what happened backstage at this All-In moment in gorilla position.
All I'm going to say is that I've been sacked from jobs previously, and I've had managers exaggerate stuff to make it seem worse than what it is. So I can believe that. Like from the reports, apparently, is that Punk went for Tony Khan, and it was like, I don't understand. Like, do you know what I mean? You have to sit there and logically think, why would you go and attack your boss? Like, unless, like, is Tony Khan a physical threat to you for the fact that you want to beat him up? Do you know what I mean? And it's like that's the one thing that really doesn't make sense to me is why I can't remember if it was said it was reported that he'd attacked Tony Khan, or the fact that the whole tussle with Jack Perry had just stumbled over and like it obviously collided with Khan and where he was sitting, and obviously some stuff fell on and whatever. But I'm sure I heard today somewhere that reports are saying that like he feared for his life because he thought Punk was going to beat him up, and it's like I find that probably the hardest thing to believe.
Obviously, we're not backstage. We don't know. We haven't seen it, so we cannot talk about anything as gospel, and everything is alleged from what we talk about. But obviously, there is a suggestion we talked about a breaking point. You know, we talk about the fact that he had to take the tube to the show. It wasn't taken with AEW staff. CM Punk was someone that was hoping to get a reconciliation with the Elite, put things moving forward so that the Elite could appear on Collision. Maybe we could have got to the dream matches we wanted to see. And this stuff with Jungle Boy Jack Perry obviously may have been the final straw, depending on who got in whose face first. But it seems with a lot of the reports that perhaps there seems to be agreement here that CM Punk certainly was physical in and amongst this, what's coming from all the three camps. But certainly can see what's been saying here. But Mexico was on to say as well that people said that this was a WWE issue. Whilst that's still true, we can now all see Punk tends to live up to his name pretty well. And TK is massively to blame, though. And I'm going all the way back to Brawl Out last year. TK lets the inmates run the assignment. He needs to get a grip and run his ship properly, and I have to agree with that last sentiment wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of TK's anyway, but that's more to do with I believe it was then when Vince retired, and instead of being like classy and tasteful about saying like obviously at the time it was all a case of you would think he'd come out and say thank you to Vince McMahon for blazing a trail in wrestling promotions across the world. Like he put out some sarky tweet about being the longest running like CEO, founder, creator of a wrestling brand, and I was like, that's really not tasteful at all. Like I expect better from someone, especially in your position, because like let's be honest, the guy's a billionaire, and it's like, dude, do you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, just have some class and decorum about yourself. But yeah, let's be fair. Tony Khan's let some of that roster get away with some madness for years. Like we've all seen the reports and we've heard some of the stuff that goes on backstage. I mean, hell, even look at some of the talent that's not even on AEW anymore. Some of the talent that was initially there from day one. Like I've just found out today that apparently Sonny's no longer with WWE.
Yeah.
And it's like Sonny's been moved to the alumni page of the website, and it's like no one said anything. Sonny hasn't released anything. AEW haven't released anything. And it's like, where are all these guys that originally found this company? Like, yes, I know you can't employ everyone forever, but yeah, it just seems like he just lets them get away with murder. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, one of the points was when I think wasn't it reported that TK took away all creative control from the Elite away at one point when Cody was still there because it was just becoming ridiculous, and it was like, this is what happens when there's too many eggs in the basket. I mean, obviously Max Caster was one as well for his promos. Like he got a load of stick for his promos because he wasn't proofreading them. So it's kind of like, what's the saying? It's a case of it's not that it's his own fault, but it's like it's his own doing. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. He's invited some of what's happened to him by not taking charge and running that ship properly. And obviously, there's some great examples there. You mentioned about the back from Max Caster, some of the booking stuff that has been going on. Obviously, there are other people that have left the company. They've had some bad words to say. I think Big Swole was someone that had a big issue when she actually left AEW originally as well. So, I mean, there is seemingly not always the roses finishes with a lot of people. I think even Joey Janela's had a few words when he's left before as well. So it's not worked out well for everyone. It seems that CM Punk is the latest name in that, although it felt like TK had tried to protect Punk the best that he could. And of course, when you look and say, with everything we have seen with CM Punk, when we have seen it, obviously when you go back to Brawl Out, for example, before that happened, obviously the stuff that he did in that press conference in the media scrum obviously was very distasteful.
Yeah, I think, like, don't get me wrong, I feel for Tony Khan there because he was kind of like, you could see in his face, he sat there just listening to Punk berate and go off about other people, like EVPs of the company, and like even there was one journalist there as well that he berated because wasn't he a friend of Colt Cabana as well? And yeah, it's like I felt him sorry for him there because it was a case of wow, like it's unfortunate for Tony because he didn't know what to do. It was a kind of case of I should stop this interview, but I'm just going to sit here because I don't know. And it's like it's a shame in that aspect, but you can't win everything, unfortunately.
No, you cannot indeed there. We'll go to the last couple of comments. Thank you, Mex, by the way, for checking out the stream and hope that you enjoy it all out and I hope you stay blessed as well, my friend. Tell me place here of our last couple of comments then before we wrap things up. Samoa Joe to be the face of the collision and also says that MJF versus Samoa Joe for the AW World Heavyweight Championship. The promise of the match would be amazing. I think it would be amazing. And even though you don't get along with the people you work with, you honestly should all get along to better the company and help your company succeed. And I think certainly there's been mistakes made all around, it seems, with this, but hopefully I think the most important thing is that hopefully AEW can get on the right direction. I think we all can agree that this was a marriage that was made at one point that unfortunately just isn't working anymore. There seems to be too many upset parts with it with CM Punk and AEW, and despite the fact that, as I myself as well, big CM Punk fan, would love to see him return in wrestling in some fashion. I just think that him with AEW, that relationship, I think it was the right time for it to finish. It's a shame on the way that it has finished, but hopefully all will go on to succeed in doing what they're doing afterwards. Although I wouldn't be surprised if more stuff comes out between now and then.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be podcasts and stuff to come out. I mean, I imagine at some point Punk will do a podcast, or like you and me was joking about last night, and like imagine he starts his own podcast. And imagine how it would be like one of the most listened to wrestling podcasts in the world. And don't get me wrong, I would tune in because I imagine he's got some stories to tell.
I'm sure he does indeed there. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But of course, if you want to come on this podcast, more than welcome. Yeah, don't see that happening though, guys. So I'm not going to hold out hope. Thank you to Temple Players, to WrestleMania UK, to everyone that has been involved on this video in the chat. You've all been amazing. Thank you for keeping us busy for the last hour and 49 minutes with your thoughts of WWE Payback, and of course with the CM Punk fiasco, of course being fired from AEW. I have to say a big thank you to the man next to me as well, NXSteve in the house, who's been joining us for WWE Payback. It's been great to get your insight and thoughts on everything pro wrestling.
Yeah, man, can't wait for the next one. Like I said, just I'll be here if you need me, man. I'm always free for you, man, whenever you need me. But you guys out there, you best kangaroo kick the like button, double clothesline the subscribe button, and share this content everywhere because I said so. Yeah.
I like that, because I said so. Very, very Steve Austin at the end there, because I said so. And that's the bottom line. So absolutely superb. NXSteve, I don't need to do the sign up because you just did it for me. I love it indeed there. WrestleBoom, thank you very much as well. Hope you enjoy All Out if that's what you're about to do. I hope everyone enjoys All Out if they're going to watch it. Enjoy pro wrestling. That's what it's all about. And if you get a chance, well, go to the community tab and vote on the latest SCW Rewind. The options are in the poll for the No Mercy retro throwback. Yeah, the options are there. There's 4 shows to choose from. Pick the one you want to see. But that's all from us. Thank you for watching. Look after yourselves and each other. We will see you next time.